If we can marry each other, we're good. If we cannot marry each other, we still have problems.
Hey guys, Hezzy here. How is it going? A little over a year ago, I made a very controversial video talking about Arab supremacy, and yeah, it was received in a very interesting way. I'm about to go off, yeah! The video's not up right now. I don't know if I'll explain why, but anyway, for those of you who did not see it, it was basically a rant about how Arabs look down on people of South Asian descent, specifically in the Muslim community. A lot of the comment section I had to ignore because it was wild, okay? It was wild, wild west. It was everything. But there were comments that were important and I felt that they deserved a video on their own. So for today's video, we're gonna talk about anti-Blackness within the Muslim American community. Before we begin, I do wanna say that this video is generalized. I'm not in academia, okay? I'm not like sorting and compiling things to a T. There are going to be things in this video that are generalized, as Black Muslims are not a monolith and neither are their experiences. And on the other hand, the other groups that I'm gonna be talking about, they're not all treated equally in their own communities. There are hierarchies within each group in itself. By no means is this going to be a perfect video. It's just meant to share perspectives because I had two really great interviews that I want to feature and highlight throughout this video. So let's go ahead and get into it. I feel like some context is needed because there are people who believe that Islam is a country and that Muslim is a language or something. And also there are people outside of the US who watch my videos. So I feel like I gotta just do a little base covering right here. Muslim American communities are a melting pot of people of every nationality, race, ethnicity, all sorts of walks of life. There are migrants who come to the US who are already Muslim when they get here. And then there are migrants who come and convert to Islam. There are also non-immigrant Americans who have been Muslim and lived here for generations. And then there are also people who are from the US who also convert to Islam as well. It's a religion, so it's like you have all sorts of people. I looked up statistics, and according to what I found, there's not a single group that makes up the majority when we're talking about race or ethnicity. They show the category white as 40%, which would then be the majority, but that lumps Arabs, North Africans, and Europeans all in one. So that's being contested, but that's not what the video today is about. Even though there's not a single majority, you don't have to look too hard to see that there is anti-Blackness and discrimination that exists in a lot of non-Black Muslim American spaces. I spoke with Tahira Nailadeen, who is a lawyer by day and a writer by night, and she has written some brilliant pieces about her life and perspectives, which I encourage everybody to go and check out.
So, the article is definitely just trying to reflect on those experiences and trying to point out of this kind of self-segregation that happens in the Muslim community, right? Arab misajid, South Asian misajid, and then Black communities as well. But the Black communities having the least resources when we have tried to join in with our other Muslim brothers and sisters, just kind of feeling othered.
Now, when we're talking about immigrants bring a lot of baggage when they come here, whether that's good or bad. Baggage usually has a negative connotation, but in this video, I'm going to be talking about it negatively and, the biases that also come. I also spoke with Khulud Madani, who has a YouTube channel, and honestly, our conversation, I walked away from that like, wow, like it was so good. So I can't wait to get those podcast episodes out for you guys. But in the meantime, I am going to share her perspectives as well throughout this video.
It's not to say that I don't recognize the subtlety as well as the ways in which it shows up. Where you have like scholars talking about, I want to show up, your wife looks, unput together, with a big afro. And I was like, say that again, please, slowly. Yeah. So the reality is, my sister's like, aren't you enraged? Take the good, leave the garbage. Recognize the garbage for what it is. And this is where education and knowledge becomes very important. You don't know that you're being slapped with subtle misogyny unless you know how to recognize it.
Yeah.
You don't know you're dealing with subtle anti-Blackness unless you know how to recognize it. When you know how to recognize it, you start to go, this is trash, this is trash, this is the dean, I'll take the dean and you can keep the drop. And this really how I feel like my family as well as myself, this is kind of how we operate, is being able to see with Allah's permission what we understand to be true and then rejecting the other stuff that I think is just cultural biases.
I talk about instances of racism in kind of microaggressions, right? Sometimes it's not always very explicit. It's in these like subtle ways. The use of derogatory terms in Urdu and in Arabic. There's a lot of my friends taught me that there's these words that are used often in households or very casually to talk about Black people in very derogatory terms as slaves or whatnot. And then also just an emphasis on skin whitening creams.
I've talked about colorism and complexes in other videos of mine when it comes to the South Asian community, but religious spaces are supposed to be these safe havens. They're supposed to be these safe places where people can exist without feeling lower than, right? It's a place where we're all supposed to feel like equal as human beings, theoretically speaking. At the end of the day, all this cultural stuff still also permeates. So the baggage that you have, you bring it and it gets mixed with the baggage that's already here. And then how does that blend together? Oh my God, it's a baggage claim disaster. That's what it is. It's a mess. People are already racist here. So, A plus B equals something, right? Exponential, maybe.
I don't think people understand that they also become players on the stage of America as well. And you have to ask yourself, where do you want to be a player on the stage of the United States of America? And in order to answer that question, truthfully, Tasneem, I think you really have to be someone who's taken some time to study the history of the country. Because it's easy to say that, well, I don't do X, Y, and Z, so I'm not of this category. But it takes a lot of nuance to start to peel back the layers to understand how you might have inadvertently started to believe the narrative that America has sold of one particular group of people.
Many Muslim American immigrants don't want to get involved in politics unless it's directly related to them. So what I mean by that is, let's say you have a Pakistani immigrant, they don't want to get involved unless something is happening that's directly related to Pakistan. Or, Trump's coming out and saying, ban the Muslims, then everyone rallies together. So they'll be vocal about the Muslim ban, but they won't be vocal about the anti-Blackness that exists within the US.
That's why I tell people, I said, we're never neutral when it comes to how we engage in the United States of America. We might be subconsciously unaware of it, or rather consciously unaware of the fact that we're subconsciously making choices, but those like implicit biases are starting to be reinforced. And I can't really fault immigrants that come into the country that also try to remain removed from it, because you just don't want to be involved in the process. But as you climb the social ladder of the United States of America, you have to make a conscious decision and a recognition of ranking and tier based off of ethnic origin as well. And it just ultimately plays into how you perceive yourself and then how you play within this, how you act as an actor on the stage of the United States of America.
The Muslim community can step up and do better in trying to address their own, biases and prejudices as the U.S. as a collective comes together and recognizes, the institutional racism in the U.S., right? But let's start in our own backyard first, cleaning up what we can do, and recognizing that maybe our own culture from, our motherlands has taught us things that are definitely ethnocentric, racist ideas and beliefs, but Islam teaches us otherwise. Islam teaches us to, embrace everyone regardless of their skin color or their ethnicity.
But the thing that Muslim American immigrants fail to recognize is that they have benefited from things like the civil rights movement. They have benefited to an extent where they wouldn't have even been allowed to come here if it weren't for the sacrifices of other people.
The whole idea of remembering the shoulders that you stand upon, I think that's a hardship too, where people are actually don't recognize the fact that it took the investment in the struggles of people who did not know them, did not understand did not know their plight, their oppression, or anything of that nature, but still understood the importance towards moving towards this concept of equity as well.
For me, experiencing firsthand, just not being able to marry into a family that is not, Black, and finding that very challenging over and over again.
The metrics I use for judging the racial relationships in the Muslim community, I look at marriages all the time. I said, that's our barometer. If we can marry each other, we're good. If we cannot marry each other, we still have problems.
Because, it's hypocritical to, call out, white folks here doing, XYZ things, bad things, but not let someone, you know, marry within your family because of their skin color. So I think that's an easy change to at least consider.
Muslims are friendly. We're very friendly. You can be in my home. You can sleep over. We're very kind to each other. But it's that family line that we're like, no.
Yeah. You're right.
It's not, I'm not happy to speak about this because it's like, you know, talking about number one, rejection, and number two, you know, based on something you can't control, like, you know, this is the beautiful body that God has given me. And for someone to just use that as an indicator of, you know, my worthiness as a wife, that's pretty like abhorrent, honestly.
There are a number of ways, Testine, to be honest, where colonization and white supremacy shows up in our communities. And I talked about jokingly the marriage market and the marriage being a barometer for it. It shows up there. Like, and it's the sad part about it is that it doesn't show up there only as a case of saying, okay, I am not quote unquote interested in this collect group of people. It also shows up there in the sense that people want to opine about why they're unworthy. And then I'm like, when we sit with the reality, we're sitting back going, you know, Allah, maybe you should have just like taken the paintbrush and like clicked a couple of colors down and it would be acceptable.
I talk about these issues. They're like, don't worry, the next generation, like our generation will do better. We're just going to do better. We're not going to have this because we're American born. I say yes, but like if we don't continue to have these conversations, then it's going to be the same, right? It's going to be status quo, especially because sometimes when people get older, they kind of revert back to their parents' kind of like habits or whatnot. And I just fear that if we don't try to do positive change, that we're just going to be kind of, be okay with the status quo, even if our thinking is more, is more awakened, right, by the cultural, by the times.
Our identities are important, right, in the sense of they make up who we are. And they're important for us having a sense of self and expression and all of the other elements of what makes us uniquely ourselves. But one thing we cannot forget is that identity politics and the othering of people, this is tactics of shaitan. It's a way to distract you. It's a way for you to nullify your deeds and actions with supremacy. It's a way for you to change your intention. And it's a way for you to be caught up in the dunya.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is I think it's really important to be open to these conversations, to listen to what other people are saying, and to not just write it off, and also examine your own biases. But I would say that the more you have uncomfortable conversations, the more you challenge yourself, the more you read and learn about other people's perspectives, I think it really opens you up to a lot in a good way. And I feel like we have a tendency to act selfishly, to only look out for people who we may think look like us. And even when it comes to Muslim, there's still that barrier. Like you can be like, this is my brother in Islam. But when you dig down deep, where is that barrier? Where's that place where you actually mean that or you actually don't mean that? So I think it's really important that individually also we all kind of do the work, and we also give people the space to talk about these things without jumping on them and making them feel like, you know, they can't even talk or they can't even share their experiences. Because the thing is, there's a lot of truth in the things, whether it makes you uncomfortable or not. Like for me personally, I feel like the conversations that I've had, even the ones that kind of felt a little bit more uncomfortable, I've only learned from them. And I feel like it's helped me. It's helped me grow. So anyway, you guys can check out longer versions of the podcast that will be up soon if they're not up already. And yeah, that's all I have. So check out Khulud's YouTube channel, and also check out articles and writings by Naila. So I believe she goes under Naila Dean when she's writing. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and like, comment, subscribe. Tazife out. Bye.